It shows that we are live. Okay, now I'm going to double check. Okay. It shows that we are live. Okay, now I'm going to double check. Okay. It shows that we are live. Okay, it looks like. Okay, now I'm going to double check. Okay. I have to. It shows that we are live. It looks like. Okay, now I'm going to double check. Okay. I just closed it. Shows that we are live. It looks like. Okay, now I'm going to double check. Oh yeah, people are logging in. It looks like people are sending me notes. I'm still there. Okay, I'm going to have to close this window. I hope people it doesn't ruin everything. Okay. Okay. So we can just wait quietly for a few minutes. People are starting to log in. It's working.
That's great.
Yeah. And the moderators are letting me know everything looks good.
Oh, good. Here's some bigger examples.
Whoa!
Those are pegboard hooks. This is one I bent a couple months ago.
Oh my!
So
that's very impressive, Sean.
Yeah. And then we can show these again, but there's another one.
Oh, I know what I want to do is make sure we're recording this. Oh, I'll be right. Oh, we've just got a minute to go.
I'll entertain. Go for it. I'll entertain.
Yeah, okay. Hold on.
Yep, shows you're recording now.
Okay. Okay, and it's 9 o'clock on my calendar, so it's time to start. Welcome, everybody. It's a pleasure to be with you. This is our second effort to have a live stream event with Sean McNamara, because the first time we tried it, it was about a month ago, I think on a Sunday, and the internet was so jammed that Zoom was not connecting with YouTube. But now it's working. I have Sean McNamara with me. Sean is the author of Defy Your Limits, the telekinesis training program, as well as several other books on both remote viewing and telekinesis, and a book about his own personal journey as the renegade mystic. We are asking viewers to bring cutlery, silverware, things that can be bent. We're going to see. This is, I don't want to call it an experiment, but it's an exercise in telekinesis, or psychokinesis, as I prefer to call it. We're going to see if things start bending while we're talking. And welcome, Sean. It's a pleasure to be with you once again. I'm delighted that we've got the technology working now.
Thanks, Jeff. I'm really excited. Yeah, I think we're going to have a great time. A lot of fun today.
So, you know, I've only, actually, I don't know that I've ever been, maybe once in my life, I've been to a spoon bending party, and I don't think much happened for me at the time. And I think in my own case, I made a decision long ago when I was researching the PK man that if I was going to use psychokinesis at all, it would be to manifest the kind of life I wanted to live, which I can tell you, yes, that's what I'm doing right now. This is my dream life and I'm living it. And I think that's the best way to spend psychokinetic energy. I didn't want to do, you know, parlor tricks like this for myself, but maybe it'll happen today. I'm kind of excited too to see if any of these forks start bending. And I know we have 4 other moderators who are working with us who also have forks and spoons. If any of those start to bend, we can bring them into the Zoom conference to share. We're also suggesting to our viewers that if you discover some of your silverware or any other objects in your presence start bending during the live stream, you can take a photo with your computer or your iPhone, and we'll post an email address. You can send it, and our moderators will forward the email to me, and we can share the screen so that all of the YouTube viewers will be able to see if anything happens. But let me ask you, Sean, what's your approach? How do you go about this?
Well, I mostly focus on using the technique that Jack Hawk taught for so many years. So for those who don't know Jack Hawk, he passed away a few years ago, but he's known for establishing the PK party. And he's taught thousands of people around the world how to do psychic spoon bending. And he was actually I think it was an aeronautics engineer. He was an engineer of some type, and he had done some work with parapsychologists and figured out a very basic, simple, easy to understand technique for getting metal to soften in people's hands. So that's the technique that I teach people, how to use just several steps to set their intention on the fork or their spoon. And then they test it when the time is right, and they find that the metal is a lot softer than usual. And, you know, it on one level, it is a kind of a parlor trick, like, oh, I could bend a fork that I normally would have to use a lot of muscular force for, and now it's moving a lot easier. But this is really about much more than just bending a piece of metal, because it's about raising someone's consciousness. And an important factor is the fact that so many people are tuning in right now, that we're all sharing the noosphere, you know, this space of consciousness together, that we're not separate on a very deep level. And so it's our interconnection with each other that's going to have a lot to do with our success today. When people do this in a room together, you can see that one person, they succeed, they bend their fork or their knife, and everyone celebrates. And suddenly in the midst of the celebration and the clapping and the laughing, someone else's starts to bend and someone else's goes. So there's this group effect. And that's what's interesting about today is even though we can't see each other, maybe we can feel each other, that we are connected. We're trying to do this thing together. And it's hopefully in a space of just fun, uh, curiosity, adventure, and not really being too worried about success. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work, but we tried it and we did something really fun and cool today.
Yeah. Now, already a couple of questions are coming in, and Foreshore has asked, does it matter if it's a knife, spoon, or fork?
Well, I'd stay away from the knife for now because that kind of thing can shatter actually. So if you're not wearing safety goggles, I'd stay away from the knife. But the fork and the spoon are great to use. And the thing about a fork is, let me find an example. You know, it has the tines, and they're another opportunity to bend metal because you might find that as you set your intention, suddenly the tines become soft and you can just pull them over as if you were peeling a piece of fruit. And then you get a fork that looks like this. So that's fun. With a spoon or a fork, what we're looking for is you might be able to bend it into a spiral. Here's another example. And a lot of first timers, they'll just get a flat bend like this. So when we're doing this technique, at a certain point, the people will be holding the spoon or the fork with both hands like this, and we'll send the command to bend. And then when the time is right, you'll just bend. And then you get this basic fold like that. But don't stop just there. Some people will succeed and they'll start turning it over and over again. Last night, someone emailed me a photo because they watched a video of another PK party that I led a couple months ago. And in her photo, she had, I think it was a fork, but it was spiraled around 3 times. So, which I think is really great because if you take a normal fork or spoon and try and bend it with your muscles, you might be able to bend it using a lot of force. But to get it to spiral around like that is really an amazing feat if you're not using your psychic potential. So it's not that we're not using our muscles at all. We are a little bit, but it's that quality of the metal suddenly becoming softer in the moment of letting go. And that letting go is probably the most important ingredient in this formula. A lot of people think it's yelling at the fork, bend, and the harder you yell, the more it'll bend. But that's not it. It's actually in the moment afterward when you have to let go completely and let the universe or the greater consciousness system or whatever's involved, let it get in there and have the effect that it needs to, perhaps on the quantum level or the molecular level, to change the energy structure that makes the metal more bendable. So it's about letting go, really, which is, for me, this is kind of a spiritual lesson in spoon bending, about letting go.
Here's an interesting question. Chris Scarpantonio has asked, what are your deepest fears as to what psychokinesis could bring about?
Well, right now, my deepest fear is that when we all scream bend, that my computer is going to burn out. but you know, I get a lot of questions, or not a lot. Once in a while, I get a question asking about fears and the dangers of psychokinesis. And like anything, it's just an ordinary, natural function of the mind. Every person is conscious and everyone uses their conscious according to their inner state and how their heart is. And I find that most people are good people. And if you want to use PK or psychokinesis in a positive way, you can look into using it for healing or setting positive intentions. For example, Jeffrey, you did it for your career and the lifestyle you've generated, and you've created something wonderful that touches a lot of people. A lot of people decide after they start working with energy this way that they want to become Reiki healers or some other type of energy healer. Or other people become intuitive because when you work with one type of psychic ability, it's like opening a door in the mind and you might have access to other abilities. So some people just become more intuitive. Your empathy becomes pronounced so that you become more sensitive and you get better at decision making. And I find too that psychokinesis is most powerful when a person is in a relaxed, calm, even loving state of mind. And that's not the kind of state of mind that produces harmful results. You can't be a hateful, angry person this is my belief, and really have profound PK effects. Now, I know that there is, right now, Jeffrey, I'm thinking of your book, The PK Man, because he had a very strong personality and it wasn't
Yeah.
always benign. So there are some cases, but he had help. He was in contact with other forces, with other intelligences, as he called them.
So he claimed, yes.
So he claimed.
Yeah.
And I find that, if you hear stories about other earthbound traditions where people hurt each other with psychic abilities, they're usually using the intervention of a malignant or malign spiritual force, or they're using their stand-in to represent this negative feeling that they have. But I think for this kind of psychokinesis, when it's just you trying to produce an effect on someone, if you do it with love, with fun, with openness and letting go, which I think are all beautiful, positive qualities, you can't do any harm because your intention is for something good and wonderful to happen. And if someone wants to do something bad, it's far easier to do something bad the old-fashioned way, using your hands, than to do it psychically. I think angry people just don't have the patience to apply psychic skills to do something harmful. So I don't worry about it, actually. For me, it's just a way of extending the energy of a good heart and an open mind.
Now, here's another question from Foreshore. It says, what's the largest or strongest thing you have ever seen bent or moved by psychokinesis?
Oh, okay. So one of them, I'll show an example. So this is a pegboard hook or a peg hook. And these are, you insert them into the wall, like in your garage, and they're very strong. They're designed to hang heavy tools. And I can't bend it with my muscles. But when I was with my friends here in Denver a couple months ago, I got one to bend about 90 degrees using the very same techniques that we're going to use today. My friend Tim, he bent his all the way around. But more than that, my friend Carol and Stacy and Dave, they were in my group here in Denver. They had a 3-foot long metal bar, and it was 5/8 of an inch thick steel bar that they were able to bend using, again, the same technique that you're going to use to bend a little fork or a spoon. They bent these metal bars. And what's funny is, Dave's a big guy, but the ladies are average size women. They're not bodybuilders or anything like that. But here they are bending these bars, and they're not even straining very hard. They're just using the command and letting go, and then it just goes. Dave actually was able to bend a metal strap. I'm just going to grab it real quick. This is not the one he bent. This is one that I tried to bend. So this is a piece of steel, and it's quite thick. And you can see I tried to do it. I didn't have a lot of success. But my friend Dave, he got his to bend into a horseshoe shape. Again, using the same technique that the ladies used to bend the iron bar. So, and it's funny because I remember a long time ago reading books about like Indian siddhas, or the people who have special spiritual powers, and stories about them bending these massive iron rods. And sometimes you see in Qigong demonstrations, people who study martial arts and the internal arts, they do things with blades and bending metal and things that confound logic. And I think it's all in the same realm of using your intention and psychic energy or psychic expression. So
people have been asking about the mechanism, if there is a mechanism. And to my knowledge, there have been some metallurgical studies of bent metal objects bent through psychokinesis, and they definitely show a different molecular structure when looked at under the electron microscope than you would find if it had just been, muscle pressure on the metal. And people report it's as if it becomes soft, like almost liquid.
Mm-hmm. I know that in some of those studies where they look at the metal with a very powerful microscope, they report it's as if some of the molecules or atoms just disappeared, that they just went away. So the structure becomes a lot more brittle, and that's what makes it easier to bend. Looking at Jack Hawk's research, he has this idea that what happens is in a normal unbent spoon or fork, the molecules are aligned in a certain way, but there are inherent weaknesses to the structure. So when you use the technique to command it to bend or melt and then let go, there's an energy dump that comes in from perhaps a non-physical realm or from the physical, but it comes in and it fills all those little nooks and crannies in the molecular structure, taking advantage of the structural weakness. And so the influx of energy suddenly weakens it or changes it, and then that's your opportunity to bend it. And some people will report feeling heat even before they start to bend it, or as they're bending it, it becomes very hot. Now, heat will even be produced when you're not doing this psychically. If you bend a fork back and forth, it'll get hot over time, but this is different. This is heat arising from within the metal or from some other source while you're doing it, or even before you're doing it.
You know, not many people know this because it was so long ago. I sponsored Uri Geller's first major public appearance in the United States. This was back in 1973. In the spring of 1973, we had thousands of people at Zellerbach Auditorium at the University of California, Berkeley campus. And I had them on, at the time I had a radio program on KPFA FM in Berkeley, and Uri would come on and the phone lines would get lit up. People would report, you know, objects bending in their homes, and also watches and clocks that had stopped running would start running again. And it became known as, people called them mini Gellers. I think that's what actually inspired Jack Houck to develop the PK parties with all the mini Gellers. So it seems as if it's a wide spread talent in the human population that most people, it just never occurs to them to think that they might be able to do something like this.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's such a weird thing. Nobody thinks to go in their kitchen, pull out a fork, and just bend it spontaneously, but it does have, people report spontaneous instances of PK. They might get upset and a light bulb in the room burns out, or they're troubled by something and a book falls off the bookcase and it opens at just the right page. These sound like cliches, but I've heard these actual reports from people. An interesting thing about Uri Geller's work and Jack Hawk's work is that Uri Geller, and I've read his biographies and seen some of his videos on his website, you know, he's very clear that he feels like another force is working through him. And he did have that childhood interaction with what could have been an extraterrestrial or a spiritual force. It's unclear, but someone came to him and a bolt of light entered his head when he was about 5 years old. And soon after is when these things happened to him. He was eating, I think it was breakfast, and using a spoon, and his mother was sitting across from him, and she saw he was trying to feed himself and the spoon bent in his hand. And then he realized he could change the hands of the clock in the classroom. And when the teacher wouldn't notice, he'd move the hand back or forward 20 minutes. So she'd ring the bell soon so they could leave class early. And that's how he started developing his talents as a kid. But with Jack Hawk's method and what we're doing today, I don't have any extraterrestrial or spiritual forces working through me. We're just using what is inherent to the human person, the consciousness we have, without any help from the outside, except in a way we are using help from the entire universe and the consciousness system. It's not just me and the spoon. It's me, something, something really big, something non-physical, and the spoon. So it's a three-way relationship that's happening here, but it's not so direct like having ETs send their energy through me or affect other people. So that's a really important difference, because someone like Uri Geller could just stare at the spoon and it'll flop over, or he could press his thumb into it. I can't do that. But so what we're doing today is we're using both hands, but still we're using a technique that enables the metal to get softer. So it's not as stunning an effect, but this is really just 100% human powered instead of with someone helping out from above. So
Mary Grace Kirby says that her cousin bent several forks and spoons and told her it felt like putty when they bent.
yeah, that's a common reply, that it feels like putty, or like plastic. Um, yeah, and it's what's interesting too is physically it feels a certain way while you're doing it, but in the moment before a person starts to bend it, because there's this moment when you have to wait and let go. But sometimes you get this instinctual hit in the back of your mind that says, oh, it's ready. It's as if the whole environment or the whole atmosphere in your room has shifted in some way it's hard to pin down, but you can tell like something's different. And it's not necessarily about the fork, but it could be something's different in your mind or all around, but you just know, I think it's ready. And then you check and you test it and it goes. Now, going back to Uri Geller, when my friend Carol bent her iron bar, she did it twice. When she did it the second time, we were actually all sitting around my computer watching an Uri Geller video in which he helps a group of people move a soccer ball that's on a table. So they're all holding hands and they're yelling at the soccer ball, move. And she was just sitting there quietly holding the metal bar. And she told me that while we were watching, and we were all just cheering. It was an old recording, but we were still participating as if it was in the present moment. When everyone yelled, move, in her mind, she went, bend. And that's when the metal bar just went. So who knows? I mean, time is relative. It's an aspect of physical reality, but it might behave differently in non-physical reality or in the larger consciousness world. And so even though we're using this old recording of Uri Geller, or maybe it was just so psychologically helpful, but in that way, Uri helped our group and helped Carol bend this metal bar. So it's really interesting. It really seems to be just about the engagement of the conscious and the subconscious mind, the openness and the playfulness. Those are the most important ingredients. And then the mechanism takes care of itself. Usually what gets in the way, what prevents psychokinesis from happening, is when someone's overthinking it. I mean, when I teach telekinesis, what prevents people from having success is that they're trying to figure out how does this work while they're doing it. So they're engaging their left, so to speak, their left brain or their higher functioning analytical brain. And that's what I call the ego. And it's just getting in the way. And I tell them, analyze it afterward. Just be like a child. Be like a child now, and then you can be like an intellectual adult later on after you've accomplished your goal. In fact, children are the best at this because they don't care. They don't care how it works. They just trust. They trust in reality and they trust in the magic of the mind. And so if we can all become like children as we do this, it'll be the most productive and fun way to go.
Yeah, my understanding is in the parapsychology community, they've done different studies where they have different PK apparatus set up. Some are very complex, some are very simple. And what they find is that it's goal-oriented. You don't have to consider the mechanism at all, just focus on the outcome that you want. And somehow the effect seems to find a mechanism all of its own.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's an important idea that what you just said, that the effect finds a mechanism of its own. I think nature has its own intelligence. So I'm exchanging the word consciousness for nature, but we send out a request. It's almost like prayer, really. We send out a request and nature finds a way to make it happen. I mean, we even see this in personal development programs where someone's trying to build a business or design a lifestyle, that if they focus on the goal and not exactly how they're going to get there, it's like a loss of energy, but those steps will show up along the way, but you have to know where you want to go. That's the most important thing. I think that's been my problem is, what do I want in life? And it's really hard to pin down for me and for a lot of people, I think. But in this case, all we want is to bend the metal. And we don't want to worry about how it happens. We don't want to figure out what's the mechanism, or we don't want to start opening those quantum physics books to look at, we don't need to talk about the double slit experiment or the observer effect. Those are things that people can research afterward. For now, just be like a child,
And I know that in some parapsychology research where they tried to get the sort of physical effects that used to occur in the 19th century seances. They get together and they'd sing songs, for example. And I think a lot of PK parties, people have music and costumes, and it's a really a joyous atmosphere, which is a bit different than a YouTube live stream where we don't have everybody here in the room with us.
Right. Yeah, that's true. The use of music is really common. And when I do this with my friends here in Denver, we'll play some songs. And I know we can't do it here because of copywriting. That would be a problem. But here in Denver, we usually like to play some crazy stuff. Well, our favorite is, or my favorite is to play some AC/DC music. So some old 80s hard rock music that really gets you stirred up. But for me also, I like to do this with Alanis Morissette music because it opens the heart for me. There's some country songs too that really send a thrill up my spine and really get the energy going. So for people trying this at home, if you're watching this as a recording in the future, at a certain point you might pause, play some music that really gets you going and lifts your spirits, and then try using the technique. What we could try today, I've been thinking about how could we incorporate music is, after we try the standard method, we could try singing the happy birthday song together and replace one of the words in the song with the word bend. And we scream bend at a certain point in the song. And we'll see, we're all in tune singing together out loud, see if it works. I mean, it's just a crazy.
I like to sing. I'll sing along with you.
Sure.
If you like. Here's an interesting question. Foreshore says, has a utensil bending ever been filmed while it's happening? And I happen to know, yes. In fact, back in the early 70s, Psychic magazine had Uri Geller come in when they were publishing out of San Francisco. The magazine doesn't exist any longer, but they had him holding the fork just like this, and it bent all by itself. Nobody was touching it, and that was captured on film way back in the early days. So I know, and it was published. So that would be one example of it being, captured that way on film. And again, if you check the literature, you'll see that there are probably at least 3 or 4 published studies of metallurgical laboratory analysis of metal that had been bent psychokinetically.
Yeah. And that brings up a good point about catching it on film, that someone's bending it that way, the way Uri Geller did. I fully believe Uri Geller's legitimate and the real deal. And I'm saying this because some people might go online and try and find other recordings of people doing it. And there are magicians who do it on stage as a stage act, but that's a magical illusion. So people need to find out and decide for themselves, is what they're seeing a psychokinesis event, or are they seeing a magical trick? Because they can look exactly the same thing. So it's important for people to be clear on that, because they might see something that's clearly a magical trick and then they think the whole thing is magic, but it's not. Psychokinesis is different. It's using energy and consciousness, versus a magical trick can be done on command. It's 100% successful. That's why I don't like doing psychic stuff normally on camera. Today's tough, because what if it doesn't work? Yeah. Whereas a magical trick, you can guarantee it. Someone's performing, they expect results. A trick is assured. Psychokinesis often doesn't work. It's just because one of the ingredients was missing, or just wasn't the time, or the person was too nervous, whatever.
Yeah, we don't really understand all of the factors, and it's probably not a mechanistic principle at play in any case, but so we're taking a risk here. For all we know, nothing will happen. On the other hand, we'll see.
Yeah. Another thing about the person, about holding the fork and watching it bend, that's what Jack Cock called graduate school. So what we're doing today is, we could call it elementary school, where you're holding it with both hands. But he says, once you've gotten through that, you can practice graduate school. And you might, I wish I had a second fork, but you might hold 2, like let's say you're holding 2 forks, and just look at one of them and do the same technique that we're all going to learn today. So this is something people can do later on their own. but you're holding both, but you're focusing on one and do the technique that we're going to learn. And then you might get the effect of a fork or a spoon folding or bending a little bit, or one of the tines. It's important to check the tines that are all lined up at the beginning, because after spending some time on this, you might notice that one of the tines has moved slightly out of place. So the effect has started to occur. And then check it later on. So that's graduate school. That's what Jack Hott called graduate school, which people can try later on their own. The other thing is some people might not succeed today, but if they come back and watch the recording, try it tomorrow or next week, they might realize that something's different and they can do it then. When I started teaching this, my friend Carol, she had a hard time in the beginning, she told me, but then eventually she did it once during one of our get-togethers. And then last time we did it, she did it 3 times, and then she bent a metal bar. So it's something that's trainable that you can get better at as long as you keep trying. So if people don't succeed today, don't give up. This is just your introduction, and you'll get better if you practice. All you have to do is not give up.
I want to change the subject with you briefly for a minute, Sean. You've got a new book out called Signal to Noise about remote viewing training. And in that book, you publish some data about how you had actually, on a couple of occasions, won some lottery money using remote viewing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was really great. Last year, twice, my friends and I used a team style design of what's called associative remote viewing to predict the pick 3 lottery. So here in Colorado, we have a big lottery and then there's the Powerball, but there's a small lottery where you only have to predict the correct 3 numbers out of 10. If you predict them in order, it's about a $2,000 jackpot. If you get them in any order, it's $80. So it's not about the money. It's just that the lottery presents us pretty much a scientifically valid random number generator on schedule. So it's a great target to use. And so each person was responsible for predicting whether a certain number would be drawn or not drawn. Will the number 6 be drawn tonight or not drawn? And so we use remote viewing to determine that. And out of about 6 attempts, we won twice. And now we're working on bigger stuff, but it's really fascinating because to warm up for our remote viewing events, we do spoon bending as a way of raising our energy and generating this cohesive feel with the team. And then we get to work because it's several hours of work for the whole remote viewing experiment. I love that remote viewing is getting more press now. I mean, as you know, I know you just interviewed Caroline Corey for her movie Superhuman, and it opens with Paul Smith teaching the main actress how to do remote viewing. And it's just wonderful because it's the kind of thing that first timers do really well at. Their success rate and their accuracy is way up high because they don't have any expectations. So it's spreading. More people are learning about it. It's really just clairvoyance with a specific protocol or a modality, how you apply your mind and how you record it on paper. But it's wonderful because anyone can do it. Anyone can learn it and have varying levels of success for sure. And you can train. But it's the same with spoon bending, what we're going to do today. Beginners are fantastic, especially if they don't have any expectations. So in a way, it's the blessing of psychic phenomena that if it's your first time, your chances are pretty good.
Here's an interesting comment from Julia Snyder, who says, my brother and I saw Uri Geller on a talk show when we were kids, and we could both bend metal spoons along with the audience. But then she said, as an adult, she tried it and she couldn't do it anymore.
Mm. Something changes when we grow up. And actually, we know biologically that the human brain continues growing and developing until about the mid-20s. The myelination continues, and this is why teenagers are generally brats. But then as we grow up, we can take a larger viewpoint on life and see other people's perspectives and have a more balanced outlook. It's because our brain structure is physically changing until our mid-20s. But maybe what happens along with that is that certain doors close, or maybe we develop belief systems about how life is, or we focus too much on just the physical. I'm sure there are 20 other explanations for what happens when we grow up, but we lose that Peter Pan ability to see the mystery of life and see the potential, and we just focus on the nitty-gritty stuff. But it doesn't mean that the door is closed permanently. If someone wants to, they can just train over and over again. And that little door that was closed, maybe when they became 30 years old or 25, they can open it up again if they really want to, and then start exploring this realm of non-physical consciousness.
I've got a very interesting comment here from Blue Dragonfly 5, who says, the most amazing bending that I have ever seen at FMBR. Now, I happen to know that's the Foundation for Mind Being Research in the San Francisco Bay Area. The founders, Bill Goff and his wife, Marion, were friends of mine when I lived in the San Francisco Bay Area. I've spoken to that group, and she says remote viewing parties, RV parties, was done by a first grade school teacher, and she just picked up the spoons and they bent in her hand right in front of them.
Wow.
So it's really interesting when the bowl of the spoon bends, because that I've seen the bowls become inverted, and that seems like, how can you do that with muscle force?
I don't think you can.
Yeah.
And I think there's something about when those kinds of things happen that they seem impossible, but yet they are possible. It's about the meaning that's produced out of it. I'm forgetting his name, but there's a book called The Selection Effect by Herb Merz, and he talks about using consciousness on a random number generator and his journey with that. And he made the point that it doesn't seem so much about what your goal is in trying to produce the effect, but it's about the value of the meaning that's produced when the effect happens. So maybe the purpose of that bowl of the spoon bending for that person that you mentioned, it was because it needed to bend in that moment to show her something that would enrich her life in a certain way. Mm-hmm. There are a couple of times when my friends in Denver, we attempted to win the lottery with remote viewing, and we got our numbers and everyone went off to go buy their tickets at the local gas station or the grocery store. And that day, the machines just weren't working. Like they delayed their ability to print. And it was like the energy, or like the universe was pushing back, saying, today's not the day, that you're trying to break reality here a little bit, so we're just going to push back. So again, it seems like there's a third player involved here. Like, is today the day for this meaning to be produced, or for this information to be revealed? So it's just a hypothesis that I have. I don't know for sure, of course.
Yeah. Naman Jain asks, what happened to the PK Man, Ted Owens, the person about whom I wrote the book, The PK Man? He died in 1987. I was able to work with him for 11 years, from 1976 to 1987, when he died. He died at the age of 67. He was born in 1920. And here's an interesting comment from Mary Grace Kirby. She says, if she doesn't care, she can guess the basketball brackets even down to the final score. She said it was weird. She won the money, and she doesn't know anything about basketball and never follows it.
That's a perfect condition. I find that sometimes when a person worries too much about the outcome, if you do remote viewing to predict the outcome of a football game, if you actually care which team wins, even though you're not trying to see the game directly, you usually use target images that have nothing to do with the sport. But even though your subconscious knows what's happening, your deeper self knows what's going on. And if you're really a Broncos fan, like my wife is a crazy, crazy Denver Broncos fan, if we do a prediction for the Broncos, another team, her mind might actually tend to think that the Broncos are going to win because she wants them to win, even though that's not what's not going to happen. So if you don't care at all about the outcome, when you're doing a prediction, when using precognition with remote viewing, that's the best state to be in. Yeah.
Sandman 3126 says, where is it best to find like-minded remote viewers?
Well, that's almost like a plug. This weekend, there's the annual conference for the International Remote Viewing Association is happening. Anyone can participate. It's going to be over Zoom. And this is pretty much the foundational organization for remote viewing. So you can go to their website. Their conference website is irvaconference.org, I believe. There's also the Applied Precognition Project with Marty Rosenblatt. And that's a great group because every week people can get involved in groups to do predictions for sports, for horse racing, and for the stock market. So they do stuff with the S&P 500 and other financial instruments. And it's all associative remote viewing. And it's a great way because we're just regular people. You know, I go to these conferences, and the first time I went, I thought I was going to just see a lot of people wearing tie-dye or burning candles a lot, or, you know, the stereotype of a new age type person.
Yeah.
And I don't mean that negatively, it's just a stereotype. And I walked in the room and it's people who look just like you and me, just regular people with regular jobs, ordinary people, but it's growing. I think because of the internet and the spread of information, people are realizing that this isn't just for a few people. It's not for special people. Anyone can learn. And you can go online and if you just look up remote viewing groups or remote viewing training, psychokinesis training, you'll find someone either online or in a local group. You might get to know the internet. Oh, I'm trying to think of the Monroe Institute or IONS. So there are organizations and training academies out there that you can visit to learn these abilities. The Institute of Noetic Science, Institute of Noetic Sciences, that's IONS. So if you know who Dean Radin is, he's associated with the Institute of Noetic Sciences. So they're worthwhile to get to know. So they sometimes offer programs on their Earthrise campus. So a lot of places actually where you can learn this here, and also in the UK, there are places where you can learn these abilities too. So it's out there.
Here's an interesting question from Brian Kramer, who asks, do you think spoon bending is mostly done by the individuals present or spirits that are interested in providing the phenomenon?
That question is so beautiful. I don't even want to ruin it by proposing an answer. And, you know, I think it's on a case-by-case basis. For example, if the person who just asked that question, if you have an ongoing connection with the spirit world or with your ancestors, and you have a feeling that they typically do get involved in your day-to-day affairs, or they help you with what you produce in life, they might be participating right now. You might even send out a prayer today, like, please help this happen for me. And maybe they'll engage in your process. It's not a requirement, but I think it's definitely possible for someone who believes that, who's connected in that way. It's definitely a worthwhile consideration.
We've been going for 45 minutes so far, or almost, is 42 minutes actually. But just to let people know, my thinking about this is, like most of our live streams, I'm willing to let it go for 90 minutes. So here in Albuquerque, when it's 10:30 is when I expect that we'll end this event. I see a couple of people have actually donated to the New Thinking Aloud Foundation while we're online. So Aaron and NGNR, thank you for your donations. It helps us keep broadcasting, so that's nice.
It's really touching.
Go ahead.
It's really touching when people support your channel. I just want to share briefly. 5-6 years ago, when I was teaching myself how to do telekinesis, and before that, when I was trying to learn how to have out-of-body experiences, New Thinking Aloud was a channel that I would watch almost every day, because you have hundreds of interviews with subject matter experts about these things. And I went to the channel for the inspiration and to gain any knowledge I could, any hint of how this stuff works. New Thinking Aloud is a repository for lots of information that you cannot find in books or is difficult to find from other resources. It's all here. So it's really valuable. So when people support your channel, they're doing really important work, and they're part of something that helps a lot of other people. It helped me learn things that I didn't know how to do before that. So, yeah.
Here's another question from Alien Protocols. And I'm pretty sure Buddy, the fellow who uses that name, is a very gifted psychic who's engaged in psychic research. Do we think that the government has an active program utilizing high-end remote viewers and PK practitioners, people like Buddy here? To my knowledge, there aren't any, but I suspect if they do exist, I wouldn't know about them because the government, if they're having these programs, are probably smart enough at this point to realize that you can protect them from hostile attacks coming from militant skeptics and militant fundamentalists, either one side or the other, by keeping them very, very low key. So if I hope they exist, and if they do exist, I'm glad I don't know about them.
Yeah, I don't know anything about that. I would assume if people are out there who are highly skilled, they're probably engaged with the government or other organizations. I know about CEOs who hire intuitive people to help them with their decision making. We know Ronald Reagan consulted with, I think, an astrologer. I think before he was president, maybe even when he was president.
During his presidency, whoa, that fork just jumped off the table.
Yeah, but what's interesting too is these days technology is so good with satellites, with drone footage, with radar, with microwave, with micro cameras, with very small recording devices. The gaining information through technology now is so powerful and easy to use and inexpensive that the other option might be that they might be still be using psychic people for perception, but they don't need to as much because of what you can see from a satellite 80,000 feet above sea level. And also there's the development of energy weapons that the government and the military is using. We've heard about people in the Cuban embassy getting hurt through the walls of the embassy because of some sort of energy weapon used against them to make people sick. So technology in a way might be replacing or might be an addendum to what people do with psychic perception.
Here's a comment from Rafa Martinelli. He says, I feel the energy of all of us. He's excited about this stream and says, thank you. And Cass adds, let's bend metal.
All right. I think people are excited and ready.
Yeah. Powderstone says, it's great to see all of us here this morning.
Hi, Powderstone. Well, should we go through the steps or?
Sure, let's do that.
Okay. So if the first step is, if you brought several pieces of metal, so different forks and spoons, the first step is almost like dowsing. You want to have a communication moment with your choices. And you might look at them all right now, or maybe wave your hand over them and just inside your mind, talk to them and ask, which one of you is willing to bend for me right now? Or which of you will bend today for me? And just see who talks back. And it's okay if it's make-believe. No one should worry about seeming foolish. Just talk to your forks and spoons and see. One of them might be saying, me, pick me, and just and it works. Jack Hawk, actually, he used a dowsing rod to do this. Some people might use a pendulum to douse over each one and see the one that responds to them. So assuming everyone has their chosen implement, I'm going to be holding one. I may not do it myself. Usually when I'm leading it, I don't do it, but I might. I don't know. The next step, we're just going to train ourselves for 10 seconds on focusing. It's just an exercise in focusing. So what you want to do is pick a place on your implement where you just want to focus with your eyes. We're going to train our mind to hold steady. And so you might pick this area here where it's easiest for the bend to happen. And we're just going to look, and I'll count down. So we know it's just 10 seconds. Just practice focusing on that spot. Get to know it. Absorb the image of it. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And we're not trying to bend it yet. We're just practicing focusing. Because when we do it on the fly, I just want people to know where their eyes are going to land and what that looks like. But the next step now is creating a point of focus within ourselves. And the way I teach it, I like to start from the outside. And I'm going to stand up for this. So if you're at home watching right now, it's better to raise your energy if you do this standing up. Now, Jeff, I know you have to stay in screen, so you might not choose to stand up. That's okay. But for everyone else, stand up with me.
Let's see.
And I'm just going to continue giving the instructions here before we actually do it. What we're going to do is connect, feel the energy in your room, above you and all around you. And we're not focusing on the metal yet. I'm just kind of holding this. I'm going to stick this in my pocket. We're just kind of feeling the energy in the room. Then I'll ask you to gather the energy above your head into a point of focus, and then bring the energy inside your head, and then draw it down your neck and out your arms, and then into your fork or knife, which you'll be holding like this when the time is right, or like this. And then I'll count down 3, 2, 1, and we'll scream, bend, bend, bend. We'll do it 3 times. And wherever you are in the world at home, unless someone's sleeping nearby, I want you to really yell while you're staring right at that spot on the spoon or the fork, bend, bend, bend. The step after that is to just completely let go. Just give up, let go of the project. You might start thinking about what you're going to have for lunch or for dinner or for breakfast. Think about vacation, or think about a trip you want to take. Just completely let go. And then a few moments later, you'll test. You'll bend it and see if it goes. If it doesn't go, you just let go again. We'll wait a few more moments, and then we'll test it again. And you might find that the second time, or maybe even the first time, it feels soft, and you just go for it. Just crank on it. Don't worry about using your muscles or anything. Just go for it, because it's that act of letting go and trusting that will make it happen. You can try and just fold it over, or try and bend it into a spiral. Again, here's an example of bending it into a spiral. Here's another spiral. Or just folding it over is totally fine too. That's fine. So the letting go is the most important part, and then testing and bending it. Okay, so now we're going to do it. Take a moment to just feel the room, feel the energy in your environment. Again, if you're connected to the spiritual world, you might feel spirit entering the room. You might feel their presence. But just feel your sense of connection, not only with the room, but with everyone else in the world who's tuned in right now over YouTube and over our Zoom chat. There's so many people watching right now. Even if you're watching this as a recording, because time does not exist in the non-physical reality, it doesn't matter. It's all in the present. So we feel each other, we feel consciousness, we feel the environment. Gather that sensation now into a point of energy above your head. And you might imagine it as a color. So imagine a color that for you represents energy, aliveness, transformation, miracles. It might be the color yellow or green or purple, violet, blue, whatever it is for you, you choose. Condense that energy into this bright color right over your head. Feel it, build it up. And now I want you to draw that energy into the middle of your head. Pull it in. And feel that point of concentration becoming stronger and stronger inside your head. And now I want you to pull it down into your neck. And as you continue, you're holding your spoon or fork in both hands. Feel the energy now crossing your shoulders, down your arms, into your wrists, into your hands. And now focus on the metal. Put the energy, put your point of focus right in the metal there, right in front, right in the spoon or fork. And now I'm going to count 3, 2, 1. Bend! 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 Just let go. And when you're ready, test. Just go for it. Just go. Here you go. Here we go. Here's one.
You just did that.
Yeah, it just went.
Whoa, mine didn't.
That's okay. Everyone just wait, just keep
Whoa.
let go. You might celebrate, hey, Sean bent his, or if you're in a room with somebody else who bent it, let go. But then like right now, Jeff, if you can test yours, just go ahead and crank on it. It might be ready. Nope. Yep. Is it going?
Well, no, I don't think so.
Okay, that's okay.
Yeah. Anyhow.
Yep.
I know sometimes people report, like if they're having dinner with Uri Geller, the spoons and forks sitting on the table just start bending.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
By themselves while nobody's watching.
Yeah, maybe they're shy.
Yeah.
So,
Anyhow, no, it didn't work for me, but I'm really, let's see that one that you just spent. That was a real twist. That was not the sort of thing that happens with normal muscle effort.
no, I mean, a person probably could if they really cranked on it, but it's just letting go,
Yeah.
and then it just went.
And then it just happened.
Yeah, I just did it. People will be able to watch it on the recording. But people can just focus on getting bent like this, because this, once you can do this, all you do is keep going and then it becomes a spiral. But just getting it to fold halfway is enough. So we'll do it another time, one more time. And this time right now, just to start, I want you to just hold it in your fingers where you want it to bend. Just feel the nature of the metal. Just feel it. We're trying to make a connection here, because in a sense, the spoon is not separate from us. It's not outside of ourselves. It's in our mind. I can see it, and the image is inside my brain, in the back of my brain. And so we're unified in this way, and touching it, the sensations are going in my nervous system, into my brain, being received by my mind, my non-physical mind. So we're just developing a connection. There's some people who'll just rub, and then when they feel it's ready, they crank on it and it bends. So we're just kind of merging two techniques. So just gently bending. And then I'm going to take us through the process again of gathering the energy. And so just feel the energy. It's not about us individually. It's about something bigger. Focus on it over your head. Just collect all the energy. See it entering the top of your head, inside your head. Bring it into a small point of focus, like a little dot full of power and energy inside your head. And you're holding your spoon or fork right now. Now bring the energy down your neck, feel it crossing across your shoulders, through your arms, your hands. Now see that dot right in the metal in your spoon or fork. See it there, focus on it. And I'm going to count down. 3, 2, 1. Bend!
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 And then just test it. Just test. Just test. And then see, I just got a little bit of a bend there on that one.
No, I don't think mine bent at all. Oh, maybe a little.
Oh, look at that. You got something there.
Tiny bit.
Yep. So I'd recommend getting a fresh one now, because sometimes trying to bend one that's already been bent, even if it's just a little bit, is more difficult than bending a fresh one. So pick a fresh one. Okay. We're going to do this again. It's really just practice. And you might ask yourself, if you're watching now, wherever you are, did I do a good job completely letting go? Or was I still lingering on the piece of metal when I should have let go? Because in a way, our ego has to get out of the way so that the energy can come pouring through. And it's a principle that people involved with mediumship are familiar with too, that you just, some part of you has to get out of the way so that communication can happen. Okay, so everyone should start just holding. Pick the place where you want the bend to happen. Just look at it with your eyes. The eyes will direct the energy. Feel the energy over your head, becoming bright and strong and vivid. Pull it inside your head. Make it more powerful, this point of concentration. Bring the concentration down your neck, across your shoulders, through your arms, through your hands. Now put it right into the metal. See the metal collecting the energy. See it. Focus. Concentrate. And now we're going to command it to bend. 3, 2, 1. Bend! 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 Let go. Like really let go. And then test. And just test. Here we go. There we go. You might also, some people out there might check the tines, try and bend the tines, see if they go a little bit. So mine aren't really going that much.
Now, one of our viewers has sent a photograph.
Wonderful.
This is from Alien Protocols, or from my friend Buddy, and it looks to me, I'm going to share my screen, but I need to ask Buddy what it's about, because it looks like it got completely flattened. And I don't know, maybe there's a tiny little bend or twist. I'm going to share the screen so other viewers can see, but I'm going to need Buddy to explain this a little bit. Can you see it now?
Yes. Yeah, it looks completely flat. It also looks like one of the tines of the fork is raised up a little bit.
Yeah.
So
maybe it was flat to start with and it just bent a tiny little bit, or maybe it was curved like mine and it got flattened.
Yeah.
Oh, here's another photo. Look at that one.
All right. Congratulations, young man.
BB's 10-year-old just bent a fork.
Oh, that's fantastic. Proud of you. That's so great. That's really wonderful.
Here we go. Here's
that.
another.
It broke. That happens sometimes. Someone broke theirs and they bent the tines. That's wonderful.
That's Troy McFerrin.
Good job, Troy.
So, Buddy, yeah, wow, Greta, really. Greta's son, what's his name? Congratulations. And look at that t-shirt. I like that t-shirt.
That's great. You know what I love about children doing this is that, again, it's not just about the trick of it. It's not about psychokinesis itself. It shows young people that they can accomplish things that most people think are impossible. So when it's time for them to think about school or their first job or forming new relationships or getting involved in sports or doing something new, this will give them the confidence to know that if I use my intention, if I go for it, it can happen for me. So I think it's great for kids. And I know there are going to be people watching that saying, well, those forks are just super soft or easy to bend. I could tell that you were using your muscles, and I was using my muscles a little bit. You can't do it without muscular force. But I want to remind people that we've done this with thicker steel bars. And for anyone who wants to try, like you could go to your hardware store and get one of these. It's a pegboard hook. This is the brand Everbuilt. This is a 1/4 inch thick steel. I could not bend that with my muscles, but when I did this technique with my friends, I could bend it 90 degrees, and I've seen people do more. So the forks and spoons are just a starting point. I wouldn't get to, don't worry about if the metal is super soft or anything, because it's not, but I could see how people's minds go there.
Well, I really tried, to bend, and
should we try the singing technique? We'll do that once. Okay. It doesn't take long. We'll see if it works for you. So what we're going to do is sing happy birthday. We'll just use the word spoon instead of somebody's name.
Okay.
But instead of the word you, like happy birthday to you, we'll scream bend.
Okay.
Happy birthday to bend. Happy birthday, dear spoon. Happy birthday to bend.
Okay.
Okay. And it's a way of just unifying all of us and having more fun with it. Ready? Happy birthday to Ben. Happy birthday to Ben. And happy
Happy
birthday, dear
dear
Sue.
Sue. Or for
Happy
happy birthday.
birthday to Ben.
And,
And then see what happens.
well, maybe a little, but I, oh well.
I got a little bit.
Oh, look at that.
I should have been holding it up here, but I just dropped my hands and it just folded. So, but you know, I've done this a bunch, so it just kind of happens. So someone could watch this video over and over again. I mean, not in one day, but once in a while, watch it, try it, and one day it's gonna go. So,
well, you know, in your book, Defy Your Limits, you explain how when you first started working, you had the pinwheel device, a little piece of tinfoil, as I recall, mounted on a pin. The pin is stuck into an eraser and the whole thing is enclosed in a glass jar. Mm-hmm. And if I remember rightly, it took you a few months to get it to move at all.
Yeah, 2.5 months. And I was really, you know, I had my hands just off the glass. I didn't want to heat up the air inside or anything like that. And just trying and trying and trying. And then I realized I had to let go to make it happen. And it happened accidentally, actually, that I would get bored and I'd start getting sleepy while I was sitting there, because I'd sit there for 45 minutes staring at this thing, which is very boring. And I'd start to dream or have daydreams, and then it would start to move. And I realized, oh, this is about a shift in consciousness, that I had to tap into those deeper wavelengths. So going from ordinary waking state is beta wavelength. So I have to dip down into alpha, which is slightly hypnotic or meditative, down into theta. So somewhere between alpha and theta, when I can linger there, that's when the effect would start to happen. And so it took 2.5 months of just hitting my head against the wall before I figured that out. And some people they can snap to that state really quickly. And for me, I just had to learn how, you know, I knew how to meditate already. I just didn't realize I had to apply that state of mind. Because normally people assume you have to force to make something move or to produce an effect. But this way you don't, it's actually about the reverse, about relaxing deeply. Now, I know people have seen those videos of Nina Kulagina from Russia, the black and white photos where she's moving heavy, but she would really force, and they would weigh her before and after, and it would take her 8 hours to produce the effect. And she would lose pounds of body weight in one day from doing this thing. And I don't know if her brain was just burning immense amounts of glucose or what was happening, but she ended up passing from a heart attack. And, you know, I've had heart surgery, so I don't need to risk anything with my heart. So I don't do things the forceful way. I like to just relax and get out of my own way, and then the effect happens. So
we've got many more pictures that have come in. So I'm going to share the screen again. And I'm pretty sure these all came from Troy McFerrin. Take a look at this. This one we saw, but here comes some more. Look at that.
Okay, all right, he got a spiral there. Nice.
And and
oh, beautiful. Is that a shrimp fork? I don't know, but that's a beautiful coil.
3 times, but look at that.
Yeah. Nice.
There it is again.
Yeah. I wonder if there's a way to turn these into decorative items, like put a flower through the middle of it or something.
Yeah.
So we got a nice.
Here's some more coming in.
That's great. Oh, look at that.
Here, Brian Kramer has asked us, is there anyone teaching us how to love, especially people who are difficult to love? Says, I know this sounds like an unusual question, but this is truly what I am searching for.
That's wonderful. And I think it is connected. This process of psychokinesis is about letting go. It's about opening up. It's about seeing possibilities. And I think when we're trying to love someone who's difficult to love, if we can have trust that there is goodness in there somewhere, or that there's a possibly good outcome from the trials and tribulations that this person might be causing us or causing other people, if we can trust and let go and know that overall the goodness of all people will come through in the end, I think that invites the heart to open up more instead of closing down defensively. It's almost like when someone's doing psychokinesis and they're trying to figure out how it works, or they're trying to analyze it, or to find the logic in it, it closes down the heart. But when they appeal to their deeper sense, to their soul, their subconscious, their heart opens up that way. So that's a function in psychokinesis. But I think the same thing happens when we have relationships with other people, that it's not about locking them down and wanting them to be who we want them to be in a certain way, but maybe making room for them to express themselves. And maybe they're acting the way they are because we've locked them down. We have these expectations or these ideas about who they're supposed to be to serve our needs. And it doesn't work. I mean, what I've learned from my relationships, and especially my wife, is from letting go and serving, helping, that opens the heart, not I need this person to be a certain way. And of course, I'm not saying let people do anything they want if they're hurting other people. We all have to take responsible action to try and help the world. But in terms of love, love means seeing someone as they are, not as how we want them to be. And that creates room for them to actually expand into something greater if that's the path their life needs to take. So,
you know, Sean, I think it might be useful for our viewers to know a little bit about you. Of course, we introduced you earlier in our previous interview, but probably most of the viewers right now don't realize you're studying psychology counseling in graduate school at the moment.
It's true. I just started. I'm in my second semester getting my LPC in counseling. And I think it's just been a long road for me to figure out what am I supposed to do when I grow up. It's just kind of embarrassing because I'm a middle-aged man. But looking back, I've been a massage therapist. I've been a realtor. I've had other jobs. And every time I did it, it was always about wanting to connect with other people and help them in their process. And I wish I realized a long time ago that counseling or being a therapist is a more direct route to helping people. For a lot of my earlier life, I was trained in Buddhism and as a meditation instructor. So I would work with people that way. But I realized that the training I received just wasn't enough to really help people on a fundamental level. Whereas being trained as a counselor, I get a lot more tools to add to my tool belt to help people accomplish whatever they want to accomplish, or heal, or come to understanding about something that they've been through. So that's just what I'm working on now. Now, my life is kind of crazy. It has a lot of twists and turns. So who knows if anything could happen. Will I follow through, or what else could happen? But I'm hoping that at least by being trained as a counselor, if someone comes to me and maybe they had an experience, maybe it's an otherworldly kind of experience with extraterrestrials or the spiritual world, or a light bulb exploded in their house when they got angry, that I can relate to them. I can say, okay, I'm trained as a classical, the classical theories of counseling, but I also know that these phenomena do occur and you're not crazy when they happen. You're not making it up. This is actually a natural part of life that most people just try and deny, but it's very real and it does affect us. It affects how we feel, affects our sense of meaning in life. What does it mean to be alive? Well, we're not just bags of blood and bones walking around. There's something much more vast and profound about us. So, for me, all this PK and all the psychic exercise, it's more of a spiritual exercise. It teaches me things. So that's my approach toward it. And I love it because you don't need anyone's permission. You don't have to get anyone's blessing. You don't have to go to some expensive retreat. All the techniques are out there in books and online like they are now. And electronic information sharing over the internet makes so much more possible and more within people's grasp. So
I'm going to share another photo. This one I believe this is from Ina Ethne, who is a regular viewer, as I recall. Look at that.
Yeah, that's interesting. I don't know what the object is above and below. That's a fork. It looks like a triple coil in the fork with a bent tine. That's beautiful.
Yeah.
That might be like some sort of measuring spoon or something above it.
Uh-huh.
It looks quite thick, actually. So,
Well, I would say that triple twist is very impressive.
mm-hmm.
I can't do that. I can't even get this spoon or fork to move even a little. Thank you for sharing that. Someone asked, is it possible to bend a giant spoon? Well, you've already talked about what 5/8 inch steel rods.
Right. Yeah. Someone bent a 5/8 inch steel rod, just 3 foot long. Someone actually bent it in the middle and then took one side of it, so just a foot and a half long, and bent it that way. So it shows that it's not just about angular force, because just bending in the middle is easier than bending just one third of it. So it was really great.
Here's another. It's just come in. Let's see. This is from Vander Rice.
All right, Vander, that's great. That looks like a nice thick spoon. That's great.
And I think we've got another one.
Nice. That one just folded right over. Good job, Mathis.
Very sharp bend.
Mm-hmm.
I think that one's from Peter Walker. And I think here's from Mathis.
Oh, look.
Another
Okay.
twist.
That's great. That's beautiful. I love seeing the guitar in the background too. That looks like a nice photo.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So good job, Peter and Mathis. Yeah.
Here, Sandy Briggs says, I bent a spoon and a fork. I took them in to show my wife. I handed them to, what happened? Handed them to Sandy. She dropped them both immediately as she received a static shock. Very strange. And when they touched them. Have you had this happen before?
Yeah, I haven't heard that from any of my friends. So that's a new one for me. But anything's possible. So that's really great. Yeah. And just a suggestion for people out there who are having some success with this, that you can take this another step, that next time someone in your family or your partner is, maybe they have a headache, you might just go and lay your hands on their head. And instead of screaming at them, you don't want to do that, but you might just send love from your heart through your hands into their head and see if that resolves the headache. Or if someone's sick, maybe they've got a cold or the flu or something, or they've got some muscular aches and pains, just lay your hands on their body, look at the part of their body that's hurting, and just send love and see them as a healthy person, as a recovered person, see them without the pain. Just hold that image while you're sending love. And just experiment, and also have no expectations, just let go when you're done. But it's a fun thing to do with friends and family. And this makes it even more meaningful. It's no longer about bending spoons. It's about healing and sending love.
Here's
Joaquin?
another spoon. Yeah, Joaquin. Izquierdo. Joaquin Izquierdo, I believe.
Izquierdo, no a la derecha. Izquierdo is a word for left.
Ah.
Yeah. That's great. That looks like a nice thick one too. Yeah.
Oh, more of them. More of them are coming in. Allison Bell. My goodness. Hold on. I got to share the screen again.
And while you're looking at these, Jeff, you might once in a while test your own, because I have a sense that something's happening there.
Okay.
Because it's, when we look at others, it redirects our attention and it helps us let go. Yeah, nice. That fork.
That one on the top is from Allison Bell, and here's one from Kathleen Coltis.
That's great. Yeah, I've seen Kathleen's name online before. Good job, Kathleen.
Okay, well, I guess they're still coming in.
Yeah.
And here are my original 4 forks. One of them seemed to have bent slightly, but for all I know, that was muscular force. And of course, this is not scientific research. But yeah, one of them did bend a little bit. Let's see if I can, maybe it'll keep bending. I wouldn't be surprised.
That can happen. The bend might continue later on or right now. So if you stack them up, I think we remember what it looked like when it was stacked. But if they're stacked now, it looks like is there an even greater
look
gap?
like they may have bent a little bit.
Yeah.
These two haven't bent at all here. These are completely, and it's possible there's a slight bend here, but a little muscle force might have caused that. Sure. I don't know.
Yeah.
And I will say this, that in the research on psychokinesis, there is something known as the linger effect, especially in psychic healing research. Once the intention to produce psychokinesis has developed, it can continue for the next, I don't know, half hour, maybe even 24 hours.
Yeah. So when we're done here, you might leave your 4 forks stacked on each other and just sort of remember what they look like.
Yeah.
And tonight you might come back and look at the stack and notice a difference in how they're stacked on top of each other. Or maybe tomorrow morning, the stack has changed. So it's just an interesting ongoing experiment that you could do.
More photos are coming in. We're getting lots of photos still. I'm going to keep sharing the screen.
Yeah.
This is again Vander Rice, I believe.
That's great.
And I don't know if here this is from Stacy Levon.
Oh, Stacy, you've got some great curves and coils there. You've got 3 of them. Yeah, and I know that silverware with a model design on the surface, that's pretty tough stuff. That's not easy to bend. So that's really great.
And Rob.
Nice job, Rob. That's
Allison Bell.
Good job, Allison.
Mikey.
Hey, Mikey, you did it. That's great. Mikey was on with me when we did this before, and great to see he'd got it to coil over like that. Good job, Mikey.
Yeah. Here's another. I guess that's Mikey again.
Mm-hmm. That's nice. Those are beautiful little spoons.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I would say, in spite of the fact that I don't feel confident that I've done any actual psychokinesis yet, it's been a very successful event.
I think so. That's great. I was a little bit nervous, but I'm glad we had a lot of success.
This is a total gamble as far as I was concerned. I didn't know whether this would work at all, Sean, but at least based on the photographs that are coming in, of course, as a parapsychology researcher, I have to put in the caveat that this does not constitute scientific evidence, but for the people who bet, they know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's really about what did it mean for you? How did it affect you? How did it change you? How are you going to bring that knowledge into the rest of your life and other things that you try and do in life? So you can bring it down to earth and say, I could bend this piece of metal with my mind. I can get that raise at work, or I can try a new job. I can move to a new city and I'll do well there. I can, I don't know, change something about my body or my mind. I can do more than I normally think I can. So, yeah.
Now, we should mention before we close that you have a YouTube channel where you have a number of videos showing psychokinesis live using the what do you call it?
The pinwheel. Yeah.
The pinwheel.
Yeah. So people can, if they just Google my name, Sean McNamara telekinesis, they'll start to see videos, but there is a main channel, or you could go to mindpossible.com, and on the telekinesis page, I have a selection of the better videos there. And some of them I'm moving toothpicks and some other stuff, or doing it with my wife. So you can do this 2 people focusing on one object, getting it to move. So different experiments, or doing it from outside of the room or downstairs. So, because distance really isn't an issue sometimes. So,
And more pictures are coming in. I also want to mention the documentary in which you participated. It was just released 2 days ago, called
Yes.
Superhuman. I interviewed Carolyn Corey, and we released that interview 2 days ago. But in that documentary, you show one of her friends how to do it right then and there, as I recall.
Yeah, Rachel was there. So the three of us were sitting at a table, and in the movie, it doesn't seem like it, but we were there a long time and working on the technique. And she did so well. And I think I mentioned it in the movie that she did so well, considering that I think there were 6 movie cameras focusing on her, and there's the crew in the room watching her. And she did so well. I would have felt tremendous pressure, but she just went right into it. And she was able to move. In one scene, there are 2 objects inside the jar, and she focused on one and got it to move while the other wasn't moving, which I think is a really interesting thing to do with psychokinesis. So it was so much fun. Caroline, she has this positive, optimistic, energetic quality about her that really makes things possible when people are around her. So it was just a lot of fun to be with those people. I think it's an important movie too.
Mm-hmm. I highly recommend it. It's called Superhuman. Here's a photograph that just came in from Johannes from Germany.
That's great. Yeah, he broke one in half.
Uh-huh. And there's another one.
I saw a Jack Hawk video where someone at one of his events was holding a fork out in front of him, and he just pulled it apart. He just pulled it in 2 different directions, and it just broke apart. So
Wow.
Look at that. Looks like a speed.
And Rafa, look at that.
Rafa. Look at that.
That looks like a pretty thick one.
Yeah.
And Jerry Kettle.
Good job, Jerry.
I believe Jerry is up in Portland, Oregon. Matheson.
Hey, Mathis. Good job. Look at those 2 coiled around. That's great.
Here's PR.
Oh, wow. That looks like a nice thick piece of metal there. Good job, PR. You know what I love is as we're looking at these photos, we're all sharing the experience that I think it enhances our connection with each other right now as we're watching this, and just keeps the energy going.
Well, just think, if people can bend metal like this, what else we can do when we apply ourselves. Mm-hmm. How, if we could just get everybody focusing on making the world work.
Absolutely. I mean, I think there have been some studies, I don't know how scientific they are, about the meditation effect. I think this happened with, I'm spacing out the type of meditation that it was.
Transcendental meditation, the Maharishi effect, yes.
The Maharishi effect. If 1% of the population in an area meditates together, the crime rate was reduced, or something like that happened. Mm-hmm. So, and the book, The Power of 8 by Lynn McTaggart has a lot of examples of that, people gathering together, setting their intention, and they can affect whole populations and war and things like that. So,
yeah, I mean, the spoon bending is just a demonstration of what's possible to get people started. It's the beginning. It's not the end.
Nope, it's just the beginning. Yeah, well put. Yeah.
Well, Sean, we've just got 2 minutes left. I want to thank you so much. This has been a delightful experience. Yeah. You are welcome to come back on New Thinking Aloud over and over again, because I think people want to have something concrete like this. So I'm delighted to have had this time with you. I'm thrilled that we had a viewing audience to share it with, and I know you have much more to share. We've just sort of scratched the surface here on what's possible. Do you have any final thoughts you'd like to share with our viewers?
I just have so much gratitude to you for this opportunity, and to everyone who's watching. I feel connected to you right now. It's such a beautiful moment, and this was really special. I think reading about it is one thing, but then doing it together takes it to the next level. It's so much fun. And that's what transforms people, is the actual experience. And so keep going, keep looking online for sources where you can get this experience from. There are other people out there teaching this, and teach it yourself. Gather your friends in your home, replay this video with all your friends, and you'll see that it still works. It might work even better with all your friends next to you. So this is great. Thank you so much, Jeffrey. I really appreciate it.
And for those of you watching, thank you for being with us.